And I'm Matthew Giddy. Here's a look at our top stories.
Netflix considers expanding to cable television.
A teen is suspended for being a designated driver to her friends.
And POU in Focus takes a deeper look into the issues with coal exportation.
All that and more next on News at 9.
It's back to business in our nation's capital for federal offices and parks and museums across the country. Late last night, a short-term deal was reached to increase the debt ceiling and reopen the government, at least for a while. Tori Dunnan has a look at how things are going there.
Without objection, the motion is agreed to.
Near the stroke of midnight, it was dubbed a done deal. The debt ceiling raised until February 7th. The government funded through January 15th. Just hours later, signs of normality across the country. Many monuments and museums are now open for business. Even the National Zoo's beloved Panda Cam is back up and running.
Welcome back, everybody.
Furloughed workers return back to work.
I'm thrilled, really thrilled. I'm happy just to be back.
Relief. It's been 3 weeks.
Relief the shutdown showdown is over.
Let's be clear, there are no winners here. These last few weeks have inflicted completely unnecessary damage on our economy.
But now Congress has to come up with a broader budget deal by December 13th. The hope that it's not another 11th hour deal.
In the coming days and weeks, we should sit down and pursue a balanced approach to a responsible budget.
That means Congress has to get back to work.
We're going to try and find how we can reach common ground and create a budget process that achieves that, and that's what we're beginning to talk about.
In Washington, I'm Tori Dunnan reporting.
A Wisconsin choral group sparked heated debate and national attention over some of the religious music they sing. Now their school district is holding off on a decision to ban their music. Emily Neubauer has the details.
You can hear them before you see them. The master singers are back.
Being able to sing all the stuff again, like all the harmonies and stuff, it just feels great.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. Wausau West Choir was temporarily disbanded after a heated debate regarding religious music.
The directive from the district was that rehearsals can't take place if music hasn't been approved.
Phil Book is the choir director at Wausau West. He says he was told by school district officials he needed to reduce the number of religious-related songs during the group's holiday performances. The school district said the decision to review the songs came after the threat of lawsuits.
My responsibility has been to always perform a balanced repertoire.
In the end, the school board voted to hold off on making any decisions. That means this group is back to its original list of songs.
I think there's an understanding that sacred music does have a definite place in our choral ranks.
But that didn't come without controversy. During a school board meeting last week, dozens spoke out against the way the district handled the situation. We were unable to contact the superintendent, but when we spoke with her Monday night, she said everything happened quickly.
Why is this that when we're in the middle of the process and no final decisions have been made, did this erupt into the fireball that it did?
But Wausau West principal says it shouldn't be about blame.
I believe everyone's intentions is and was to do what's best for our kids and our community.
So as long as there's dialogue with leadership and the people who are in the trenches every day, we can work together.
When people buy Apple, it appears they're prepared to pay big money to do so. The new Apple iPhone 5S seems to be outselling the cheaper iPhone 5C by more than 2 to 1. Consumer Intelligence Research Partners released data to show that the 5S accounted for about 64% of Apple's cell phone sales at the end of September. The 5C only accounted for 27% of sales. It's not just the high-end market accounting for Apple sales, though. About 9% of iPhone buyers purchased the 2-year-old 4S.
Netflix, the popular online video service, could soon be available through your cable box. The Wall Street Journal reports that the company is in talks with several U.S. cable providers, including Comcast, to offer its service through an app on their set-top boxes. Currently, customers who want to stream Netflix on their televisions must either have a TV with an internet connection or connect their TVs to an internet-connected device. This deal will be the first of its kind with the U.S. cable provider. It also comes after a similar agreement Netflix announced with the UK cable operator Virgin Media Incorporated.
2 girls in Florida were arrested and accused of bullying a 12-year-old girl to death. Rebecca Sedgwick killed herself last month after her mother says she was relentlessly tormented. As Eric Glasser reports, police were led to the girls after one of them posted a taunting message online.
At this time, these are the 2 primary harassers.
Over the weekend, Polk detectives spotted this, a statement posted on social media, they say, by 14-year-old Guadalupe Shaw. Yes, I bullied Rebecca and she killed herself, it reads, but I don't give a.
Who's the next person that she verbally and mentally abuses and attacks?
Concerned they couldn't wait any longer, investigators charged Shaw and another one of Rebecca's former schoolmates, 12-year-old Caitlin Roman, with aggravated stalking, a third-degree felony. Their relentless badgering, a contributing factor, say detectives, in Sedgwick's tragic suicide leap at an abandoned cement plant.
Bullying in and of itself is not a crime, but bullying makes up the predicate acts for stalking or aggravated stalking.
The 2 girls with no previous records were booked and released. At Shaw's home in Lakeland, the 14-year-old emerged wearing a hoodie, quickly whisked away by her parents. Neighbors say she's often in fights and lacks discipline.
The kids hang loose, they're what would you call it, unsupervised all the time.
Sheriff Judd says that's a big part of the problem. Parents apparently unaware or uncaring about their children's actions. He questioned why Shaw still had access to social media at all.
Watch what your children do online. Pay attention. Quit being their best friend and be their best parent.
Authorities say the bullying stemmed from a dispute from Sedgwick and a former classmate over a boy that they have both dated. The 14-year-old suspect's family claimed that her social media account had been compromised, but investigators don't believe that to be true. No court date has been set for the girls. Since both have a clean record, authorities say that they will not likely do much, if any, jail time.
Disney's The Lion King is about to be crowned the King of Broadway. The Tony Award-winning show is on track to become the first Broadway show in history to top the $1 billion mark at the box office. That's more than other big shows like Les Miserables and The Phantom of the Opera. The Lion King has been on Broadway for 16 years. The film version of The Lion King has made more than $960 million worldwide.
In Mexico, a mother is desperate to protect her children from bullies. Inez Martinez says her kids are being taunted for being indigenous and for speaking a different language. CNN's Rafael Romo tells the story.
Mis niños los pegan mucho.
Inez Martinez says she couldn't stand to see her children suffer anymore. Determined to protect them, she went to a human rights office in Monterrey, Mexico, and filed a complaint alleging discrimination and abuse.
Mamá, mira, me pegaron chicle en mi cabeza.
Other children would stick chewing gum in their hair and the teacher wouldn't do anything about it. One day, somebody cut his bag up with scissors, broke his pencil, and shredded his notebook.
Her 5 children, Martinez says, have been mocked and made fun of. They have been taunted and bullied. Their classmates at Felipe Angeles Elementary School in Monterrey have beaten them up and stolen their lunch. The reason? Martinez says they're discriminated against because they're indigenous Mexicans who speak Nahuatl, the tongue of the ancient Aztecs.
Yo les enseño náhuatl porque yo hacía.
I teach them Nahuatl because that's the language I speak, but the principal says that's the reason they're being bullied. It's your fault because you taught them that language, she said.
There are around 15 million indigenous Mexicans living in the country, belonging to more than 60 ethnic groups, each with its own language and customs. The Mexican Commission for the Development of Indigenous People says many still suffer from discrimination and lack of access to the services the rest of the population already enjoys.
Calls to school officials seeking comment went unanswered, but state officials are siding with the family. The school was visited by state authorities, and the entire staff and student population underwent sensitivity training.
Hay que darles una plática de concientización.
We're having awareness talks. We're also telling them about indigenous groups who do not hurt our country, but enrich our culture. We have to make that clear so that everyone cooperates.
The children returned to school this week, but they seemed uneasy at the school now plastered with posters that say, "No to aggression." But it's still an open question whether the same classmates that used to victimize them will now treat them with respect. Rafael Romo, CNN Atlanta.
The legal definition of female is at the center of a new lawsuit. A transsexual woman is suing for the right to get free breast cancer screenings. Will Ripley has the story.
I'm just a person like anyone else.
At 62, these are the autumn years of Jennifer Blair's life.
I have the same hopes, the same dreams, the same concerns as any other woman.
Only Blair wasn't born a woman.
After almost 50 years of living as a male, it was not really an authentic life.
Blair had gender reassignment surgery a decade ago. She takes doctor-prescribed synthetic estrogen.
But that also does put me at an elevated risk for a variety of tumors, including breast cancer.
After noticing unusual breast growth, Blair went to Planned Parenthood for a mammogram paid for by Women's Wellness Connection. The state-run program offers free cancer screenings for low-income women.
I don't have any health insurance.
Even though she meets all the requirements, Blair was turned away.
I was shocked. I was hurt.
The Centers for Disease Control pays for the program and says it only covers clients who are genetically female.
Is discrimination based on her transgender status? I think that's pretty black and white.
Attorney Sarah Parody filed this lawsuit, claiming what happened to Blair violates the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act.
And we think that that's a terrible misjustice.
That's why we need legislation.
9 News legal analyst Scott Robinson says federal law is fuzzy on the transgender issue. He says Congress needs to act
to determine how such individuals are to be treated, whether as male or as female.
I am a real woman.
Blair eventually scraped together the money to pay for a mammogram. She does not have breast cancer. She's suing so others like her won't be refused potentially life-saving cancer screenings.
This is about social justice. This is about holding public organizations accountable to do the right thing.
The Colorado Civil Rights Division issued a written response saying the state program is only following CDC guidelines. An attempt to get a response from the CDC failed. Their press office is closed because of the federal government shutdown.
In Los Angeles, a bomb squad is investigating an explosion at LA International Airport. Police say a dry ice device exploded in a restricted area. Detectives say 2 other devices were found near Gate 148. A similar explosion took place Sunday. Aerial video shows dozens of patrol cars on the scene and officers focused in an area between 2 jets nets to the Bradley terminal. No injuries are reported. The situation did not affect air travel.
Former San Diego Mayor Bob Filner will never hold office again. That's just one of the agreements hammered out in a new deal after he pled guilty to charges for his bad behavior against 3 women. Michelle Chan reports.
Their accusations sent shockwaves across City Hall and the city of San Diego. Tonight, Filner accusers are speaking out, awash a mix of emotions.
Threw me completely off guard. I had no idea that he would ever do that.
For Filner's accusers, disbelief and the belief that something resembling justice had finally arrived. Yes! Different feeling in late August. Filner's accusers shook their head in dismay as Filner resigned, saying he was a victim of a lynch mob mentality.
I have never sexually harassed anyone.
More than a month later, an apparent change of heart in the form of a guilty plea. Great-grandmother Peggy Shannon, who works at City Hall, says Filner kissed her on the mouth and repeatedly harassed her. She calls the guilty plea a good surprise.
It really vindicates all of us women that said, yes, he did do this.
Emily Gilbert, a Marilyn Monroe impersonator, says Filner touched her backside during a fundraiser. We asked her about the plea deal and the lack of jail time.
I feel uneasy about that.
Gilbert believes Filner could have used some time behind bars to think.
He doesn't seem to show remorse.
But Gilbert and the other accusers we talked to say they are pleased with the deal because he won't be allowed to run for office. Another accuser, retired Navy Rear Admiral Ronnie Froman, believes he may have attempted a comeback.
he had, risen back again, that would have been absolutely even crazier than all the stuff we've gone through over the last number of months.
Others say the plea deal is fitting because denying Filner any future elections is a painful punishment.
Other than the pocketbook, I think that's going to hurt him more than anything.
Michael Chen, 10 News.
An honor student in North Andover, Massachusetts is being punished for helping out a friend. Officials say the student violated school policy when she drove home a pal who had been drinking. Bree Sison tells her story.
She's very fragile, and I'm worried about her. I'm very worried about her. She didn't do anything wrong.
It's tough for Eleanor Cox to talk about the heartbreak her daughter Erin feels after being demoted from captain of her volleyball team and suspended from 5 games in her senior year. This isn't a troublemaking kid.
We've raised our girls, to be kind, loyal, compassionate, and to always be there if someone is in need.
Eleanor was proud to hear her daughter came to a friend's aid.
She goes to a party because someone there says, can you come take me home? I want to go home. This isn't safe for me. She gets there, and literally minutes later, the police show up.
When Erin's high school heard about the party, though, they didn't think what she did was admirable. They said by being there, Erin was in violation of their zero-tolerance policy against drugs and alcohol. Lawyer Wendy Murphy is trying to get the school's decision reversed.
If a kid asks for help from a friend, you don't want that friend to say, sorry, I can't help you. I might end up in trouble at school.
Erin's mom went to court to get help, but things didn't go the way the family hoped.
The school sent a lawyer there to defend the school, and that lawyer said out loud to a judge, and it was a lie, that Erin was arrested.
Neither the school district nor its attorney could be reached for comment, but the Cox family is hoping they'll listen to the gang of supporters, including Erin's teammates who stood behind her.
She did what she thought was right, and I'm proud of her for that.
Stay tuned, and we'll be back after this next commercial break.
Next is PLU in Focus with Natalie DeFord. This week, they'll take a look at the controversy surrounding coal exportation.
So here's the deal. I can show you a bunch of footage of third world countries with starving children and roofless shacks. But you've seen that all before. I can play on your emotions and explain to you why you have it so good and you owe it to the world to go out there and help others. But you already know that. The truth is, this is nothing new to you, but the world is still waiting for people like you. So what are you waiting for? Peace Corps. Life is calling. How far will you go?
This new phone is awesome. It has made my life so much easier. I get kind of bored when I'm driving and I need to know what's going on. So now, with this huge screen, a keyboard, and a ton of apps, I can get a text and write back right away, no problem. It's like I barely even have to look at it.
News at 9, I'm Natalie DeFord with PLU in Focus. Arch Coal, the United States' second largest coal producer, is looking to export the coal from Washington to China via barge. The coal would be delivered to Washington by trains more than a mile long. It is argued that the trains will cause terrible traffic and that exporting the coal would still have negative effects on the environment. Students attended a rally earlier today to voice their opinions about coal exportation. Here's what they had to say.
So coal is being phased out as a fuel source in Washington state, and so the fact that we're considering shipping coal through our ports onto China to be burned, I think is morally very backwards. And
I feel that it's extremely detrimental to our community, to the health of our community, and then our environmental community as well as our global community as a whole.
I just feel that coal export trains are an extremely irresponsible decision, especially in considering the health of our communities. Having big uncovered trains of coal passing through daily. And I just feel that it's not very economically or environmentally sustainable.
Coming from an environmental standpoint, I don't think it's safe for the environment, and it's really unfair to the people who are trying to sustain their lives with a healthy lifestyle.
So I feel like the trains would be very bad for Washington. I live on a small town on the border of Canada and the US, and we already deal with trains going in and out of Blaine, the town I live in. And it's so hard for people to get to school, to get to work, and it's, you know, constantly making us late. If we put more trains in, not only will it be bad for our health, the environment, the native species, but it will also be bad for our people because we'll be burdened and not be able to get places.
Next, we'll hear from PLU Sustainability. They will explain the issue more fully and share their opinions.
Students at PLU are really fortunate to live in Washington State if they're trying to live a sustainable lifestyle. Over 74% of our electricity comes from hydroelectric, which has its issues, but is still generally considered renewable, especially in comparison to the burning of fossil fuels. Also in Washington State, our previous Governor Gregoire signed legislation into effect, Senate Bill 5769, saying that we are going coal-free entirely. So to say that coal is so dirty and dangerous to our health that we won't burn it in our own state, but we're willing to be an export of it, to me seems like we could be doing a better job as a leader to stand up for health and quality of life when it comes to air quality and CO2 emissions.
So the coal train terminals that are proposed in Washington State there's a lot of controversy about whether they're good or bad for the economy. But from my perspective, it's exporting these environmental costs to a different country. And as we know, the atmosphere that we all share isn't just constrained by the boundaries of a single country. So even though we're exporting this coal to China, where they're going to be burning it, the environmental consequences are going to be borne by those of us in the United States as well. So.
Well, the city of Seattle actually passed a resolution that the city is against it. And the reason that they're against it is because of the extreme traffic issues that having these trains up to a mile long would have going through Seattle. It's going to shut down cities as far as transportation goes. And then there's just a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of coal dust that blows off of these open trains, and people don't know exactly what kind of health effects that has. It's noisy, it's loud, and if the export terminal opens, you'd be talking about trains almost once an hour.
First off, I'm really against it, and the reason for that is, I mean, there's dozens of reasons why I'm not for it, but the main one that I was just telling you was that these ships are so big that they are not, if there's not enough weight in it, that they'll like wobble around and flip over, essentially. I'm not an engineer by any means, so I don't really know. But so when they bring the coal to China, they let out all of the coal, and then they have to fill up all of the water from China, which would have invasive species for the Puget Sound. So when they get back, they just empty all that water out, and who knows what's going to happen from that. So I don't think I really want to see what's going to happen.
I don't think that the export is a good idea. I think Washington is really poised to be a leader when it comes to going coal-free and moving away from the fossil fuel industry. PLU itself only has 2% of its entire investments in fossil fuels, and it'd be great if we could get away from it as a university. I think if Washington were to do this, it would be a step in the wrong direction to the legislation that Gregoire already passed to move away from coal, and it would be essentially using our state and hurting us, exploiting our resources via rail and our clean air so that Montana and China could benefit, and really just short-term benefits that won't work out for them in the long run.
Yes, I think just a really realistic one that everyone should be concerned about is just the noise that's going to be going through all of these towns that the tracks are going to be going through that are exporting the coal. And then with that, they are going to also be letting off coal dust throughout all of those towns. So anyone who has asthma or any other breathing respiratory problems are going to face a lot more problems, and other people could possibly develop breathing problems as well.
They're talking a lot about job creation from the terminals. What they're not mentioning is that by Arch Coal's own estimate, there's only going to be 86 jobs created, and that's in the most generous estimate. Realistically, there will probably be only about 50 jobs from this terminal, and I don't believe that a short-term investment of 50 jobs is worth the greater green economy that could come out for Washington should we choose to pursue other opportunities. The hearing, there's a rally that starts beforehand for people who really want to show voice and support before the export hearing. Then the hearing starts at 4, and this is a scoping hearing to collect comments that then have to be reviewed by Arch Coal in order for them to move forward. So before they are able to ever install a terminal, they need to fill out an environmental impact statement. Part of the environmental impact statement are these scoping hearings where they hear comments. So this is students' chance and just citizens' chance to voice their opinion, to make sure that these issues are covered in detail so that they know that Arch Coal has thought about these things before they get to move forward.
I'm Natalie DeFord with PLU in Focus. Up next is Beyond the Brochure with Devere Dudley. He'll be sitting down with RHA's Social Justice Director, Brianna Walling, who will be telling us more about Gender Exploration Week.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Welcome back to News at 9. I'm Devere Dudley, and tonight I will be interviewing RHA's Social Justice Director, Brianna Walling, to talk about Gender Exploration Week. Thanks for coming in, Brianna. First off, as RHA's Social Justice Director, what does your job entail?
Yeah, so I'm the Social Justice Director for Residence Hall Association, and a lot of people don't realize that we're just that little office right next to ASPLU. There are social justice directors in each residence hall on campus, and so I help facilitate the events that they put on, and so we have positional meetings twice a month. And then in addition to those meetings, I am also in charge of what is called Gender Exploration Week, which I will of course be talking about more.
Yeah, so can you briefly tell us about Gender Exploration Week and what it is exactly?
Yeah, so to give you a little bit of background, this week was actually I just found this out today actually. This week started a few years ago when a few concerned students on campus started realizing that we used to have like these Mr. and Mrs. Loot pageants, essentially, sort of like for homecoming or something. And some students started questioning whether that was kind of heteronormative, that we're placing, very gendered roles on our campus. And so instead of having that, to take place of that, we started having more conversations about gender. And then that eventually evolved into what is now a whole week of events, so Gender Exploration Week. And it varies from year to year, but it usually takes place on National Coming Out Day, or either kicks off on that day or ends on that day, depending on how the week works. So.
All right. Why do you think PLU felt it important to have Gender Exploration Week?
I think there are a lot of reasons. The main reason being, as I said before, the whole culture surrounding gender is very one or the other. So something is masculine or something is feminine. There's not really much of a spectrum there. And so these conversations really started to talk about why is there a spectrum, or how is there a spectrum, and how does that exist in the PLU culture and also American culture in general. So having those conversations and dialogue is really, really important to a lot of people on this campus. So that's why we dedicate not just one event, but a whole week to really delve into all sorts of specific gender-related issues.
Yeah, so would that pretty much be the purpose of Gender Exploration Week for the PLU community?
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of groups on campus, such as Kwazu, which I've been working really closely with, Queer Ally Student Union, that is really passionate about not just promoting equality within the queer community, but also promoting equality amongst allies, and how can we include allies in those conversations too. So yeah, it's really important to a lot of groups on campus to have that dialogue and talk about these things.
Absolutely. So could you explain, for those of us that may not know, the difference between sex and gender?
Sure. I was just talking about this the other day in my anthropology class. So sex, quite simply, is the sexual organs that you're born with, that you are biologically, you have. Gender, on the other hand, is something that is socially constructed. So we assign certain things to be masculine and feminine, for example. That is an example of something that is gendered. Really, like I said before, the purpose of this week is to show that gender really is a spectrum, that it's not just masculine or feminine. There's really a whole range of things in between that we often don't talk about quite enough. So
one's gender and one's sex could differ.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and there's also such a thing as intersex, actually, which is where an individual is born with both sexual organs, and so that's kind of another subcategory as well.
Absolutely. So what were some of the events that students may have missed this week already, and who was sponsoring each event?
Yeah, so the kickoff day was on Friday, October 11th, so Friday of last week. I originally had intended to have the events end on that day because it was National Coming Out Day, but then it was homecoming week, so I was like, it's kind of a lot going on. So we actually did that as the kickoff. And Queer and Kwazu put on a shout event in the cave where students could come and share their coming out stories, and allies could come and listen, or talk as well. So that was the first day, and then following that we also had MAP on Saturday at the homecoming game do a little activity with people that were at the game, asking questions about masculinity, and then on this Monday, we had the 14th. We had a conversation or a presentation and discussion about the sexualization of the breast and what that means in society. In particular, emphasis on the media and songs such as Blurred Lines, and talking about that. And we had a really interesting conversation, I thought, that day. And then on Tuesday, we had oh my goodness, I'm already drawing a blank. We had a documentary night, or sorry, not documentary. It was a movie night called XXY. It's a story about an intersex individual living in Uruguay. And then on Wednesday was Love Your Body Day, the reveal. So everyone that took pictures as part of the Body Love Club got those revealed. And then on Thursday, which is today, we had just had a panel with representatives from the LGBTQ alphabet soup. And Ally as well. So we had a panel and discussion and with reference to each of those perspectives.
Now there's something going on tomorrow. What's going on tomorrow?
Yeah, so tomorrow's the last day, and it's actually through the Diversity Center. They're putting on the Queer Student Retreat. So anyone who identifies as queer can sign up for the retreat. So similar, yeah. So it's not necessarily a panel or a discussion event like we've been having, just because Fridays are so crazy. It's hard to get people around on Fridays. But so I thought it was awesome that the Diversity Center was putting on that retreat. And so I think that falls under the theme of the week. So anyone who identifies as queer is welcome to go on that and then continue these kinds of conversations.
Well, cool. A great way to end the week.
Yeah.
Is there anything else happening during the rest of the year that goes along with gender and sexuality on campus?
Yeah. So there's the sex positive talks that are put on by the Women's Center. I don't know if you went to the Robin Oakes lecture. She was a speaker that came and talked about sexual binaries a couple of weeks ago. And there's another sex positive talk coming up about abstinence I think on Monday. So those are a couple of events that I think really stimulate good conversation on gender as well. And then in addition to that, I know Kwazu is talking about putting on an event for allies and how allies can become more involved in the queer community, and how that conversation, or how the queer and allies can come together more on campus. So I think they might do like a workshop or something like that. And so those are the ones that I know of off the top of my head, but I'm sure there will be a lot more.
So besides going to these sort of workshops, is there other ways that students can get involved if they feel passionately about this topic? Definitely.
There's Quazoo, as I mentioned. I've gone to a few of their meetings, and they have some really interesting conversations. There's also, and they meet, I believe, every Tuesday or Thursday. They meet every Thursday. And then there's also SAPIT, which is a sexual assault training for students that want to become trained to be an ally for students for others that have been sexually assaulted. And I believe the training is already passed for that, but I'm sure that they could contact the Women's Center to find out how they could get involved more with that. The Women's Center is always putting on different things too. There's also MAP, which is specifically for men to talk about masculinity, and they were the ones that helped us a little bit as well. White Ribbon Week is coming up, which they're putting on, which is Sexual Violence Awareness Week. Trying to think if there's anything else. So there's a lot of ways. The Women's Center is a really great place to start, though, and you can go to them. They're really, really welcoming. They have a dog. You can go just chill there and talk to people or find out other clubs or ways to get involved. So.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
So sounds like that's the end of it. Just besides tomorrow, sounds like it all went well.
It did go well. Yeah, we had pretty good turnout, especially considering everyone was insanely busy with life and school and everything. But yeah, we had like about 15 plus students at most every event, as far as I know. So yeah, the Love Your Body Day reveal was incredible. We had like 140. There were 140 students that took pictures with them. Body Love Club took that over this year. So yeah, and every event has
Well, cool. Yeah. No, sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
Once again, that's all the time we have for tonight. We will see you again next Thursday at 9. Feel free to check us out anytime at massmedia.plu.edu. Brianna, thanks again for coming in. For all the News at 9 crew, I'm Devere Dudley. Good night.